Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel, All Things Melisha, where I discuss a lot about politics, but I also discuss about different everyday life topics in general. If you are new to this channel and any of my discussions interest you, feel free to hit the like button for your girl, leave a comment, share, and subscribe. So all of my subscribers want to come on here and just say thank you for all of your support. I appreciate you. So I just thought I'd do a little bit of a Black History Month lesson on today because we are in, and some people may say, why are you coming on here now? This is the last day of February, the last day of Black History Month in the United States. But I just wanted to come on here because I have been speaking with different people from different ethnic groups that don't even seem to know the basics of our history. And to me, that's thanks to the education system here in the United States, where we're practically, described as being slaves and free laborers. And we got a chance to see the Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech every single year. And they wanted us to keep on dreaming, keep hope alive. But our history as a people is far, far richer than that. And I can't take up all the time just talking about our history. But I have a book. This is an old book, you guys. I have this book that I've been looking at, if I can get it together so I can show it to you. That's titled 1001 Things Everyone Should Know About African American History. And this is an old book that I got from my grandfather, who loved books. And that's something that I've always loved as well from a kid growing up. I kind of fell off on reading, but I'm trying to pick it back up now because reading is fundamental. And, it was something that was against the law for African Americans to do during slavery. If they were found reading, they were lynched and sometimes even worse. So that's something that you probably didn't know, that it was a law that blacks could not read. Now, and I say African American a lot because there's just something we hear and we tend to repeat what we hear. But a lot of people say we're not African, so why call us African American? We were born in America. Now, we know that we are, through research, the descendants. A lot of us are descendants of people that came from Africa. So let me just say this. We were given the right to vote. It hasn't even been 100 years ago. I think it was in the 60s that the bill passed for us to have the right to vote as a people. It was also in the law books that we were considered to be 5/8 of a human being, okay, by this government. Also, for those that don't know, there was a such thing called the Black Wall Street here that was actually in Oklahoma. And it was a community of blacks that owned their own hospital, owned their own cleaners, grocery stores, different businesses in their homes. But it was bombed by the U.S. government due to race, relations. So it's a lot of things that a lot of people don't know as to why Black Americans have been in the condition that they have been in for seemingly so long. I believe that our history runs parallel to the children of Israel in the book of Exodus in the Bible, because we were brought into a strange land similar to them on ships where our ancestors served under harsh conditions, okay? And they regarded neither the old or the young. And so this was the prophecy that was told to Abraham, the father of faith, by God, that he was going to bring his children into bondage and that they would serve a nation that they knew not for 400 years. And so we know that the first slaves reportedly landed here in the United States in 1619. And so according to biblical prophecy, that prophecy would have, that time would have expired in 2019. And we know that there was an event that happened in 2019 that played a major role in in world affairs. I just said it like that. Where that following year after that 2019 incident, we went on lockdown. So I'm just going to say this. When it comes down to learning about our history, there's not enough time. We watched Roots. I know I was one of the ones that watched Roots, which is a 6-part series by Alex Haley. I think it came out in the 70s, I want to say, or the 80s. I can't remember exactly when that movie came out because it's an old movie. It was when I was a kid. It probably was before my time. I'm not sure, but I know I've watched it several times. It's like a 6-hour, the whole entire thing is about 6 hours, where he gave a description of how we were taken from how our ancestors were taken from Africa and practically kidnapped and brought on ships here to serve. And based off of our history, we served for 400 years without payment. So if you have a people that is working to your benefit for 400 years, then it would make sense why there is an income inequality gap. Okay, I remember taking a course in college at the university. I don't want to say what university because I don't want to give up where I'm located right now. But I remember taking the course, and the professor stated that he didn't believe that we were in our condition. That anyone was in their condition just by happenstance. He believed that everybody worked themselves up by their own bootstraps. And so everybody that's in their condition was in their condition just because. And so I had to politely let him know that there was an incident called slavery, where we as a people served a nation without payment for 400 years. Okay? So when you see how things are portrayed in the media, where we were shown to be the most lowest of the low, ratchet, thugs, uneducated, remember that it was a law that we could not read. Remember that during slavery time, the women and the men were both treated like property. Okay? And there was a character by the name of Willie Lynch that reportedly came to give slave owners information on how to keep their slaves in check. So if you don't know about Willie Lynch, you can look into that for yourselves. But pretty much what they did was they worked division. The old against the young, light skin against dark skin, field workers against house workers. And that's one of the oldest tricks of the enemy, which is to divide and conquer. And, in history class in school, I remember us being taught a lot about the Jews. Okay, they went into details with showing us concentration camps, showing us the ovens, showing us how they were starved, mass grave sightings. But when it came down to our history, Black American history, they kind of skipped along. They didn't really want to go off into the details of the things that we suffered, like African American men being tied up from limb to horses and having the horses whipped to go in opposite directions, ripping the limbs apart. Okay? And this was done in front of other slaves to instill fear in them, to keep them under subjection. Okay? So it's a lot of things that we suffered as a people. There were stories of young boys that would look at a Caucasian woman and have their eyes gouged out just for looking. We had a young African or young Black male named Emmett Till, who was just 14 years old, and reportedly he whistled at a white woman. And because he whistled at a white woman, he was dragged out of his home in the middle of the night. And, I don't want to go off into the details, but you can look into that story if you're interested in history. But the whole thing about history, because there are many stories about the tragedies of slavery and of our history, but we come from a rich culture. We are the descendants of kings and queens, okay? So we as a people didn't just get in our condition by happenstance. The thing I hate about the media is how they portray us always in the light of being the most ignorant, the most thuggish, the most ratchet, over-sexualized. And I mean, you see it in our music, you see it in our movies, how we're always put out there to just be over the top when it comes to sexuality and depravity, okay? But we come from a very rich spiritual culture, okay? And the thing of it is we have to find our way back to God. And I'm talking to myself too. When you get too far off, you got to bring it back to God, because the further away you get from him, the closer you get to them, the devil. So I'm just going to leave it off like that, you guys. Just wanted to give a little bit of our history, because like I said, we don't get taught about that. And this is the last day of Black History Month. But our history extends so much more beyond just being given a month. And I also would like to end on this note, which some people probably won't agree with, because this is supposed to be about Black history. But I do not want to talk about Black history without also acknowledging that there were abolitionists, there were white, Caucasian people and others that died, okay, and fought for us to be free during slavery, okay? So that's, when I would see all of these movies about race, like Rosewood and Roots and just different movies in general, it would stir up hatred in us to look at each other, like, oh, you did this to my people. Or the other person would look down on the people and say, oh, you're inferior to me. And it would keep us divided. And I was one of those ones. You can ask my family, and I still watch Roots to this day, because it has a lot of important and informative messages in it, just for life, period. But the older I get, the more I realize that it wasn't so much as, race, black against white. It was mainly good versus evil. And you have that in every single race. So to me, race as a whole, looking back on history, and also listening to the likes of Fred Hampton, who was a 21-year-old Black Panther Party member who was assassinated in his sleep by the United States government, because he was on record saying this as well. Back in the days, they used to have a certain term for the police officers that were attacking the Black African-American men. They would call them pigs. But Fred Hampton made it clear that you have not only white pigs, but you have black pigs, you have yellow pigs, you got mixed pigs. So you have some good and bad in every single race, which means it's not about color, it's not about race, it's about good versus evil, okay? And I believe that race has primarily been used to keep us divided, to keep us from coming together, to keep us from communicating with each other. Because once we talk to each other, we find out that we have more in common than we don't, okay? And when it comes down to this government, you'll see that it's more of us than it is of them. And that's the reason why the media and different propaganda tools like the radio and the education system has been used to keep us looking at each other with the side eye and not really coming together and communicating. Because you guys, honestly, we've all been played, okay?